I'm Rochelle Riley, columnist for the Detroit Free Press, and I'm in the stream.
Hi, I'm Nakeyja Cade. For almost 3 years, the residents in the U.S. city of Flint have been living with a toxic water supply.
I'm Malika Bilal. Today, we revisit that crisis.
For more than 1,000 days, the people in the U.S. city of Flint have been struggling through a water crisis. The impact has brought serious health problems and left almost 100,000 people with an undrinkable supply.
I don't drink it. My children don't drink it. They drink my bottled water. Only thing I do, like I say, I wash my dishes with it. I cook with it, and that's as far as I go.
The crisis first appeared in April 2014 when the state of Michigan switched the source of the city's water supply. The new source was extremely corrosive to the city's aging lead pipes, causing high levels of the toxic metal to leak into the supply. But are things changing? Here to talk about that in our studio, we have Dan Kildee. He's a US congressman representing Michigan's 5th district. He was also born and raised in Flint. Yana Lambrinido, she's a science professor at Virginia Tech and part of the team researching and conducting the water testing in Flint. Joining via Skype from Flint, we have Melissa Mays, a resident and activist, and she founded Water You're Fighting For in an effort to raise awareness about the ongoing crisis. And Yvonne Lewis, also a Flint resident, she's the founder of the National Center for African American Health Consciousness. It's good to have you back, everybody, or have you in this conversation. We revisit what's happening in Flint. I'm just looking here on my laptop. The last time we talked about this, January 2016, so a year ago. Melissa, in this last year, if you could just explain to people how you use water, how you live in Flint, what would be the image that you'd give them?
Tons of bottles. I mean, everything is bottled water for us. We drink bottled water, we cook with bottled water. My sons use bottled water to wash their faces, to brush your teeth, to make ice cubes, to make coffee, to give to our dogs and our cat and our plants. It's all bottled water because of the fact that we cannot say that the filters are safe enough because we have bacterial problems as well as lead and all the other metals. We try to reduce our usage. We can't even do our laundry at home because the water smells so badly that I can't wash my kids' school uniforms. So we have to go to a laundromat outside of town every week and spend about $40 a week to do laundry, even though we could do it in our home, but we just can't send our kids to school smelling like that. And we still have to shower in it. We just spent $200 on shower head filters. They're supposed to last 6 months. They lasted about a week and a half before the rashes started again. So it's pretty desperate, actually, and we're still getting water bills. We got a shut-off notice because we've not paid for our poison water, and I don't think that we should have to because it's a faulty product. It's a poison product, but we apparently owe $1,500 for water we can't use safely.
Congressman, this is, I don't even know, even if I'm being neutral, this is outrageous. As somebody who grew up in Flint, when you're hearing this, and these are the people that you represent, what's the thing that comes to mind? I mean, this has got to be criminal.
Yeah, it is criminal. And in fact, there have been some criminal charges filed, and that's one form of justice that we need to pursue. But the thing that even when I talk to my colleagues about this, they have a hard time understanding that in the 21st century, in the United States of America, at the richest moment in the history of our nation, we have a city of 100,000 people who not only have had poison water going through their pipes, but for 2 years have faced the same problem. And the frustration that people feel is that while there has been some effort, that the sense of urgency that ought to accompany a crisis of this nature doesn't seem to be present. And it's enormously frustrating. It's depressing, and it really tests the credibility of government when we can't deliver clean water, fundamental to a civil society.
You know, it's that sense of the lack of urgency that I think a lot of people are telling us that they feel as well. These are Flint residents. This is a video comment I'm going to play. This is Flint resident Quentin Barrett about what it's like to live in Flint right now. Yvonne, I'm going to direct this to you, so have a listen to what Quentin told us.
Here we are. It's 1,000 some odd days since the Flint water crisis has begun. We still do not have clean water in most of the areas in Flint. Of course, we know that some areas were hit harder with this crisis than others. But what you have right now is kind of a sleepy mood in the city. Nobody really talks about it much anymore. You don't really see many people flocking to either start or attend bottled water drives. You don't really hear about it as much anymore.
So Yvonne, it sounds sort of like a sad resignation that this is just the way life is, and this is just how Flint residents have to live. Can you relate to his comments at all?
Well, absolutely, and that's one of the things that we work on a consistent basis. I think because of the lack of trust in this long-term conversation where the mixed messages have come saying that one day the water is okay, another day the water is still not okay. And one of the things that we're saying to our community is until the water is safe for everyone, it's not safe for anyone. And so we're trying to ensure that we don't have this sense of apathy, so we continue to have information sessions across the city, talking to the community residents. I just did a radio program this morning talking about the number of opportunities that people have to get water and to make a difference. I want to say that we have a real test of our democracy. This crisis really started long before we found out that the water was contaminated because of the emergency manager law, which led to the final decision to switch the water source. And so we're saying to people every day, we have to continue to believe in democracy, to believe in our legislators who we asked to be there in Washington to represent us, but we cannot stop sharing our voice. Every day we must mobilize, make a conscious effort to say this is not over. We live this every day. We must speak about this and ensure that our voices don't get muted and they don't get left out. It is very important for us to continue to encourage each other in this community to stand up and speak out.
Let's just spell it out for people, Yana. How much lead can you drink in your water?
There is no amount of lead that is safe to drink. So really, any amount, I think many of us have heard and read in the news about assurances that the water test below the federal standard, which is 15 parts per billion. And I think it is easy to think that this is the safe level. Any levels below 15 parts per billion, this lead standard must be okay. In fact, that's not true. There's no safe level of lead in water, and Flint residents have every right to demand that their water is safe and lead-free.
It's a really important point, though, this notion that there's some sort of tolerable level. It's a convenient level. The way the federal rule is written is not so much for the safety of people, but it's for the convenience of water system providers, of the federal government or state governments. Because if we went to the level that I have prescribed in the legislation that I introduced, to go to 5 parts per billion, many thousands of systems would suddenly be out of compliance. So it's really more a matter of convenience.
But is that sustainable? Let me show you this graphic here. So we've got this is your former water before all of the chaos started. So you had 2.3 parts per billion, Melissa and Yvonne, and then by the EPA, and this is the level that the EPA say this is okay, the Environment Protection Agency, 5 parts per billion. So you were below that. Your water was actually not so bad. And testing last year, 27 parts per billion. That's the testing that the EPA did and the local testers did. But then at times, 158 parts per billion have been found. 13,000 parts per billion have been found in some tests. And Congressman, you're saying zero is what we want.
Yeah, I mean, our goal has to be to eliminate lead from drinking water systems and accept the fact that that is going to mean really big investment. But just think about it this way. For the lack of a few $100,000 or even a few $1 million that was saved by switching Flint to the Flint River water source, we now have committed hundreds of millions of dollars to correct what could have been solved with just a little bit of investment, with just some effort to upgrade the system in Flint. So there's no way to get away from the fact that not only is it morally bankrupt to poison people with their own drinking water, But in the long term, it's going to cost us so much more not to do this right than it is to continue to allow water systems, not just Flint, but water systems all over the country, continue to deliver water that is not safe.
Melissa, I want to throw something to you via Twitter. This is Chris, and he says, we're seeing a lot of new interest in helping to revitalize the city of Flint, but we are still being told not to drink tap water. What are you being told? What are the messages that you're hearing, and do you believe them? What are you doing in actuality?
Well, one of the recent headlines of our local newspaper had said that the Attorney General said that unfiltered water is safe to drink, but don't drink it. So it's the confusing messages. And like Yvonne had said, all of this was done by taking away our voice and our democracy, and they are still not listening to Flint residents. I put out consistent videos, so do other families. That's one thing that is catching, because we don't believe this. They said that the current 90th percentile is 12 parts per billion, like that's some amazing huge feat, when it's not. That means it is still not safe. It could still do permanent damage to our children, and they should not be exposed to this. But there's homes like mine that just tested 1,740 parts per billion. So what am I supposed to think? You know, other people, their homes are safe too? No, the system is not consistent. There's no way that we can put reliable water through our taps. It's just changing constantly. It's not fixed. It's not in compliance. And even if it's in compliance with their rules, it's because they're twisting the numbers. We can't trust them with the test results because we already caught them lying and cheating previously. There's no trust there. They still lock us out of meetings. They still talk down to us, and they do not listen to the actual problems of the people who live here. Because what we're seeing is people who are saying that the water is safe, they don't live here. They don't have to shower in this acidic mess. They don't have to be afraid of the steam that comes out of their taps. But they're saying it's safe, just drink up, pay your bills, and deal with it. But the answer is no, we're not buying this. And we are watching investment go into like the Capitol Theater and other things in the city, but not the water lines. We're seeing blight money come in and things getting cleaned up in other areas, but in no way, shape, or form is the focus anymore on getting us clean water. I mean, just like Congressman Kildee said, the urgency is gone. And every time that the president does something ridiculous, stupid, evil, whatever, we just get left in the background. And the scariest part is that one of his goals is to shut up the EPA and cut them off, and then make sure that science goes through politicians first. Well, that is exactly how Flint got poisoned to begin with. Unelected officials put in place by politicians that know nothing about water treatment, making the decisions for our water treatment. So the rest of the country had better wake up, because you're going to end up like Flint if you don't stand up and say enough is enough.
Jana?
Yes, you know, what Melissa said, I think, is a very important point about mixed messaging in terms of your water meets all federal safety requirements, but don't drink it. And this is a message.
I'm just looking at the EPA here, and it says, until sufficient information is gained to determine when the water is safe to drink, EPA and CDC recommend that people only consume bottled or filtered water. Has been an interesting week or so, and we've gone through a transition from one administration to another administration, but that is still up there. If I'm looking under advice to Flint residents, it is telling me do not drink the water.
That's right.
Our state is telling us something different.
And again, these are very confusing messages, and I think they're rooted in a federal regulation, what we call the lead and copper rule, which is really not designed to give straight messages to consumers about how to deal with lead in their water. The lead and copper rule is designed to meet a specific standard for utilities to meet the standard. The standard has really no health base at all.
How did someone come up with that then?
This is a regulation that has been written in partnership between our government and the water utility industry. As Melissa and Yvonne have said,
are they crooked? Let's just put it out there. Are they doing it deliberately so that they don't have to pay more money? They don't have to face lawsuits? What's going on behind this?
I think
as a scientist,
the priority is really protection from cost and liability, with water utilities at the center. Wow. The priority is not consumers, and nationally, we're facing a test of our democracy. Just as Flint residents need to keep speaking out, the rest of us need to do the same. Stunningly, other cities around the country are not very far away from where Flint is today in terms of lead in our drinking water.
I think one of the things that has to change is that the government at every level, whether it is state government or even city governments operating these systems or the federal government, just have to be transparent and honest with people. Like, give people enough credit to make decisions about their own families that will protect them. Don't, in some of these messages that come from, say, state of Michigan officials are overtly paternalistic. The state of Michigan has no right to tell people in Flint whether they should or should not drink the water. What they should tell the people in Flint is the absolute truth about the quality of water, and people there can then make their own judgments about when and whether they want to consume that water or give it to their children.
It's interesting, Congressman, because we had a message directly for our show from the governor of Michigan, Rick Snyder, and he declined to come on the show, but he said that all of the testing data is verified by the EPA as well as other independent water testing experts. And he also says the cooperative approach is specifically designed to provide assurances to residents. Malika, where do you want to take us
He
next?
said assurances,
yeah.
but he did not say accurate
You know,
facts.
Melissa, I hear you there. You're not the only one who is upset. And the fact that the governor declined to come on this show is another reason that people are upset about not being able to give those grievances to him. This is Taha, who says that the governor of Michigan and his cronies, as he calls them in this tweet, must be held accountable. Only then will citizens then be able to trust their government, which is what you were saying, Congressman. How can they believe whatever the government says, whether or not they should be listening to them or not? How can they believe what they say if they don't trust the governor, they don't trust the systems in place to do the right thing?
They can't. And that's why I say what the obligation of the government is now is to tell people the absolute truth, tell them the facts, and don't judge for them whether they should drink this water. Here's the problem. The credibility, the honesty that should come with any government function has been lost. I mean, trust is the biggest casualty.
Would holding someone accountable bring that back, and how would that happen?
It's going to happen over time. Holding the individuals accountable, criminally charging those who knew better and told people to drink the water when they knew it was not. Those individuals have to be held accountable. But there's justice that comes in many forms. Making it right, actually fixing the problem, is one form of justice. Holding individuals accountable for the actions that they took that contributed to this is another form of justice. But I think people have to, across the country and around the state, have to understand that when Governor Rick Snyder, through his agents, through people he appointed, told people in Flint that the water was safe to drink when they themselves knew that the water was not safe, it makes it really difficult for anybody in Flint to accept from that same government assurances now that the water's okay.
Yeah.
I mean they lied once.
How would that even be possible? There's a little piece of a documentary I want to show you. This is called Don't Forget About Flint from the Detroit Free Press. And it addresses that point exactly about trust. Have a listen.
Now, in the end, thinking about the faith and the trust they're gonna have in the water, that's another issue.
What's the prognosis? Not very good.
I'm not gonna drink. I have a water filtration system and I don't drink that.
Get me to trust the water, like, I just couldn't do it. It's definitely not gonna be just wiped away. This isn't a tear on your face.
Yvonne, how do you get to trust? What would make you feel uncomfortable about drinking your water? What would you need to know before you turned on the tap, put your glass under it, had a glass of water in Flint?
I think what's so important here is when we talk about trust, it's really understanding that people in community, just because we're in community and we're not necessarily a scientist, it doesn't mean we don't have the ability to understand. And we talk about transparency, we need to have community members who are in partnership in discussing what's going on, in making decisions about what's going on, and in communicating what's happening with the water. We have a number of opportunities where community can stand beside someone and say, this is what we understand, and really help us then give some clarity about the issues. When you say 15 parts per billion, what does that mean to a person that's living every day? And you're looking at this water, and it doesn't look like, I've got a vial of water that someone gave me in 2000 2015 before it was acknowledged because they knew something was wrong. And when voices are not heard, people are not given the ability to communicate, you shut down the communication, you won't give people an opportunity to speak their piece. This is what we're looking at, what we call an emotional trauma. And this is not only the fact that people were not told that something was wrong with the water, but people who we trusted to help make the water right did not give us the appropriate, adequate information. So now, we want to rebuild trust by just saying something is different. We need to be at the table and part of the conversations so that the questions that are pertinent to everyday life can be answered, because it's just not a science project. This is something we live every day, and we need the opportunity to be connected in the conversations so that we can raise those questions and improve the science. If that's what's necessary, and obviously it is necessary to improve the science. It isn't that we don't agree that science is necessary, but if no lead is good for anyone, again, it's not good for anyone. So then I want to say, we also don't. It's just not the lead. There are other contaminants in the water that only you find out later on. One example of that, we were given a boil water advisory because of bacteria in the water before we knew that there was lead in the water. So you got people who trusted to boil the water, but while we're boiling the water, we're concentrating the lead in the water, so that only makes it worse. So all of these things need to be discussed. You can't separate out, let's talk about lead today and maybe talk about Legionella or Shigella tomorrow. This is happening all at the same time in everyone's life, and we need to be clear about the decisions that are being made, but also the way the decisions are being made and how that information is communicated.
You know, Vaughn, I'm glad you made that point. It's one that someone online is also making as well. This is a chemical engineer out of Nigeria who says government should bear in mind that it's cheaper getting clean sources of water than treating or managing the side effects from water that's tainted. But I want to shift a little bit to a video comment we got from a resident from Flint. This is Megan Wilson. I want you all to have a listen to what she told us.
My name's Megan Wilson, and my water has been poisoned for 33 months. The trust has been broken. Nothing can repair that unless we fix the infrastructure. $1.6 billion to fix. We need an overhaul of the oversized infrastructure, and it needs to happen fast and quickly. People are sick. They're getting sicker. We need Medicare for all.
She says fixing the infrastructure, Melissa, really that means new pipes, laying new pipes. That will take a while, but is that the first step in your mind?
Absolutely. That's the only thing that's going to make this water safe, not dumping in more chemicals like they've tried. Like Yvonne said, this is not a science experiment. We're not guinea pigs. And I don't have a PhD behind my name, but I do know the pipes are corroded from the water treatment plant all the way up into our taps. They need to go, or they're going to continuously poison the residents here. And then, and Megan's right, we need Medicare for all. We have about 8,000 undocumented residents in Flint that did not need a permanent citizenship to get poisoned, but they have no access to health care. So they're getting sicker and sicker, and some of the highest blood lead levels were from undocumented children. This is not acceptable. It's still half Band-Aids, half this, half that. It's still not okay. And then, of course, now they're going to try to repeal the Affordable Care Act. What does that do to the poisoned children and adults and seniors in Flint? We don't have enough coverage. The pipes are still rotting in the ground. I have a copper service line, so I don't think it's ever going to get changed. Yet I have 4-digit lead. I've got 3.8 million plate count of bacteria coming through my shower. And for people who don't understand, I have a cold or flu right now. I lost my voice, and it's been 12 days. I don't know if it's a regular people, what's what we call regular people flu, or if it's from the Pseudomonas aeruginosa that's coming through my shower head. So I have to bring in my water test to take to my doctor saying, here's what I've been exposed to, at least what I know. And the thing is they're still not testing for anything really beyond lead and copper when it's bacteria that's killed people. We just had a new report come out that they thought there was about 100 more people that died from Legionnaires that wasn't properly reported.
Right,
and that's
Melissa,
that comes from a bacteria in the water.
Melissa, we could do this show for 3 hours and we still wouldn't be done with it. We're going to check back with you regularly to see what's going on in Flint with your water crisis. Yvonne Lewis, Melissa Mays, Yana Lambrinido, and also Congressman Cade. Thank you so much for being part of this program. Really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Take care.